He left on a night the sky looked like it was splitting open, rain hammering the windshield, headlights trembling on an empty county road, and Lisa standing on a porch that suddenly felt too wide for one heart. Sean didn't leave with cruelty. He left with pride dressed as ambition, with fear pretending to be "I'll come back soon," and the kind of silence that makes a goodbye feel like punishment. In a small town, people don't forget. They just learn to whisper softer. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into seasons. The farm kept demanding dawn. The hospital kept demanding strength. Bills arrived like clockwork, and loneliness arrived like weather. Sometimes a drizzle, sometimes a storm that stole her breath. Lisa cried in places no one could see, then wiped her face and kept moving because waiting didn't feed dreams, and it didn't keep lights on. And somewhere between harvest and heartbreak, between learned resilience and quiet prayers, Lisa stopped checking the road, not because she hated him, but because she finally understood a truth that hurts and heals at the same time. Love that leaves you alone is not love you can build a life on. She stopped waiting, and she started becoming someone even her pain respected. Years later, on a morning that looked ordinary, coffee cooling in her hands, boots on the porch, the town waking up slowly, a car she didn't recognize rolled into the gravel drive. The engine cut, and out stepped a man in a clean coat and expensive watch, eyes older than the last memory she had of them, holding his breath like he already knew he didn't deserve air on her property. Sean had come back, but Lisa didn't run. She didn't melt. She didn't beg for explanations. She simply looked at him the way you look at a door you already locked. Calm, steady, and terrifyingly sure. Because the question wasn't, "Do you still love me?" The question was it too late? Stay until the end. Because when Lisa finally faces Sean the way she always should have, it won't be to ask him to return. It will be to decide if he deserves the life she built without him. If you believe second chances only count when there's real change, subscribe to Redeemed Hearts and comment, "Too late," because what happens next will make you rethink what love is supposed to look like. The storm had been building since noon, thick clouds stacking over the fields like a warning no one could ignore. The wind bent the bare trees near the farmhouse, making them bow and snap back again. Inside, the kitchen light flickered once, then steadied, casting a warm glow over cold tension. Lisa stood by the sink with her hands braced on the counter, listening to Sean pace behind her. His boots hit the wood floor in restless circles like he couldn't find a place to land. Outside, rain started in scattered taps, then grew into a steady, impatient drum. It sounded like time, like something coming whether they were ready or not. Sean's phone lit up again on the table, the screen buzzing with a name Lisa didn't recognize. He didn't pick it up. He didn't silence it either. He just stared at it like it held both his future and his escape. Lisa turned slowly, her expression controlled. Too controlled for someone who had been losing sleep for weeks. "You're not even trying to pretend anymore," she said, voice soft but sharp at the edges. Sean's jaw flexed, and he rubbed a hand over the back of his neck like pain lived there. "It's not what you think," he answered, and the lie felt tired before it even finished. They had been here before, circling the same argument until it bled into silence. A promotion in the city, a new position, a bigger paycheck, a chance, he said, to finally become someone worth being proud of. But every time he said it, Lisa heard what he didn't say. "I feel trapped, I'm scared. I don't know how to be the man you need." She watched him now, and her heart did that old, humiliating thing, hoping he would choose her, hoping he would stay. "Say it," Lisa whispered because her chest couldn't hold the weight any longer. "Say you're leaving." Sean's eyes flicked up, and for a split second he looked like the boy she'd loved before pride hardened him. Then his face closed again, controlled and distant like a door locking from the inside. "I need to do this," he said, voice low, careful, rehearsed. "I'm not built for this life. Not yet." The words landed like a slap disguised as honesty. Lisa's throat tightened, but she refused to cry where he could see it. She had learned, even in the last few weeks, that tears could become a weapon in the wrong hands. "What does that mean?" she asked. "What is this life to you?" Sean glanced around the kitchen, at the worn table, the chipped mug, the quiet home they'd fought to keep. His gaze moved to the window where the field stretched into darkness. "This town, it's too small," he said, and regret flickered after the cruelty. "I feel like I'm drowning in other people's expectations." Lisa let out a short breath that almost sounded like a laugh, but it wasn't. "Expectations," she repeated, voice trembling now, not from weakness, from the anger of being reduced to something he could run from. "All I expected was for you to keep your word." Sean's shoulders rose and fell like he was trying to carry something he refused to name. "I can't keep doing this," he said, and the way he said "this" broke her most. Because this meant her too. The rain hit harder, as if the sky itself couldn't stand the tension inside that kitchen. Lisa stepped closer, just enough to feel the space between them turn electric. "Look at me," she said, and her voice finally cracked, not in tears, but in truth. Sean looked, really looked, and his eyes were wet, but his hands stayed at his sides. "I love you," Lisa said, simple and devastating. "But I won't beg you to stay." Sean swallowed, blinking fast like a man trying to erase what he'd done before it happened. "I'm not asking you to beg," he whispered, and somehow that was worse. The phone buzzed again. Sean reached for it this time, and the movement was quiet, final. Lisa watched his thumb hover, then press. "Yeah," he said into the phone, turning slightly away from her, like he'd already started leaving. He listened for a few seconds, then nodded once. "I'll be there tonight," he replied. Lisa didn't know who was on the other end, but she knew what those words meant. She had just been replaced by a plan. When he ended the call, he didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He didn't offer comfort or a promise that sounded like home. He just exhaled, long and heavy, like relief. "I can't miss this chance," he said, as if she were supposed to understand. Lisa's hands shook, but she kept them at her sides, fists curling only slightly. "And I'm supposed to be proud of you?" she asked, voice calm in a way that scared even her. Sean's eyes softened, but he didn't step closer. "I'm doing this for us," he tried, and Lisa's stomach turned. For us? Those two words had become his favorite shield. He used them to justify every late night, every hidden call, every distance that grew like a crack in glass. "For us would mean you asked me," Lisa said quietly. "For us would mean you stayed when it got hard." Sean stared at her, and for a moment she saw panic, real panic, like he was realizing the cost. But then the panic shifted into decision, and she knew she had already lost. He went to the hallway and pulled a duffel bag from the closet like it had been waiting. That detail, how prepared he was, cut deeper than his words. Lisa followed him, slow and steady, as if moving too fast might shatter her. "You packed," she said, not a question, because the truth was right there in the zipper seams. Sean didn't look at her. "I didn't know when I'd have the courage," he admitted. Courage. As if leaving her was brave. As if staying would have been weakness. Lisa pressed her lips together until she tasted blood. At the front door, the storm roared like a crowd outside a courtroom. Sean's hand hovered over the knob, then gripped it. Lisa stood behind him, close enough to smell the soap on his collar, close enough to remember mornings they'd shared. He turned halfway, not fully facing her, like a man afraid of what her eyes might demand. "I'll call," he promised, and the promise fell flat, weightless, rehearsed. Lisa nodded once, not in agreement, just in acceptance of the moment, because deep down she knew. Calls were easy. Presence was what he was refusing to give. "When?" she asked, and her voice wasn't pleading. It was practical. Sean blinked, as if he hadn't considered she would need more than vague hope. "Soon," he said. "When things settle." Lisa's chest tightened with a familiar, bitter understanding. Soon meant never. Settle meant years. "I won't wait in pieces," she replied, surprising even herself with the steadiness. Sean flinched like she'd struck him with a truth he didn't want to earn. He stepped onto the porch and cold wind slapped the doorframe. Rain hit his shoulders, darkening his jacket immediately. Lisa stayed inside the threshold, refusing to follow him into that weather like a symbol of desperation. Sean turned back one last time, eyes searching her face for permission to leave cleanly. "Lisa," he started, voice breaking around her name. But he didn't finish. He couldn't, because finishing would mean facing what he was destroying. So he swallowed it, and silence became his goodbye. The truck door slammed like punctuation at the end of a sentence she never agreed to write. Headlights cut through the rain, bright and cold, washing over the porch where she stood still. Sean backed out, tires grinding on gravel, and for a second the truck hesitated. Lisa's heart lifted just a fraction, like maybe he'd stop. Maybe he'd step out and say he was sorry and choose love over fear. But the truck didn't stop. It turned, and the red taillights disappeared into the storm like a disappearing prayer. Lisa didn't scream. She didn't collapse to the floor in cinematic heartbreak. She stood there, hands at her sides, staring into the rain until it blurred everything. The quiet after he left wasn't peaceful. It was violent in its emptiness. The house creaked, the wind moaned, and her own breath sounded too loud in her ears. She walked back to the kitchen and turned off the light, one switch at a time. Not because she wanted darkness, because she didn't want to see how alone she was. In the bathroom, she gripped the sink, leaned forward, and finally let one tear fall. Just one. Hot, furious, unwilling. Then she wiped it away with the back of her hand like it didn't deserve to live on her face. Outside, the storm kept raging, indifferent to her heartbreak. Lisa looked at her reflection, eyes bright with pain, jaw set with something stronger than despair. "If you're leaving, then leave," she whispered to the empty room, "but I won't disappear with you." That night, Lisa slept in fits, not because she missed him, but because her body couldn't understand the sudden absence. At dawn, the rain softened into mist, and the fields looked washed clean, almost innocent. Lisa made coffee, fed what needed feeding, and started the day like a woman learning a new language. A language where survival came first, and hope had to be earned, not imagined. She didn't know yet what she would become, only that she would not remain a ghost in her own life. And somewhere far down that wet road, Sean drove toward a future he thought would save him, unaware it would haunt him first. The first week after Sean left, the town moved like nothing had happened. The diner still served pancakes at dawn, and the church bell still rang on Sunday. But Lisa felt everything sharper, every glance, every pause in conversation. In a small town, silence isn't empty. It's full of other people's opinions. She kept her chin up anyway because pride wasn't the enemy. Need was. And she refused to become the story people repeated for entertainment. So she learned to walk through whispers like they were just wind. She went back to the county hospital 2 days later, not because she was ready, but because life doesn't wait for grief to settle. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, cold and constant, like truth. Lisa tied her hair back, washed her hands, and forced her voice steady. Patients didn't care who had abandoned her. They cared if she showed up. And showing up was something she still knew how to do. It was the only thing keeping her from unraveling. At night, she drove home through dark roads lined with bare trees. The farmhouse waited at the end like a question she couldn't answer yet. She ate standing up, leaning on the counter, too tired to sit with her thoughts. Then she checked the locks twice, not out of fear, out of habit of being alone. In the quiet, memories tried to ambush her in ordinary places. The hook by the door where his jacket used to hang. The second mug in the cabinet, untouched, accusing. Bills stacked fast, neat and brutal, on the kitchen table. Lisa spread them out like a battlefield map and took a long breath. She called the utility company, then the bank, then her supervisor for overtime. Her voice never shook on the phone, even when her hand trembled. Panic rose in her chest, but she swallowed it like medicine. She made lists, crossed items off, and turned fear into action. Because survival, she realized, was just love wearing work boots. People offered help in the way small towns do, half kindness, half curiosity. A casserole appeared on her porch with no note, only a silent assumption. Mrs. Hart from church stopped her near the mailbox and squeezed her arm. "Honey, men get scared," she said, like fear excused absence. Lisa smiled politely, the kind of smile that keeps peace but guards truth. "Being scared isn't the problem," Lisa replied, gentle and firm. "Leaving is." Sean called once, late, when she was folding laundry. His name on the screen made her body react before her mind could decide. She stared until the call stopped, the house holding its breath with her. Then she listened to the voicemail without sitting down. "I'm busy, but I'm okay," his voice said, too casual for the damage he'd done. "Tell me you're okay too. I'll check in soon." Lisa deleted it with one tap, hands steady, heart not. That was the night she understood something that changed her. Waiting wasn't romantic. It was a slow kind of self-erasure. It turned a woman into a shadow at the edge of her own life. Lisa stood at the window and watched the fields disappear into darkness. She whispered, not to him but to herself, "I'm still here." Then she opened a notebook and wrote down one sentence, "I will not shrink to be loved." In October, the trees turned copper and gold like the world was trying to comfort her. Lisa repaired the porch step with her own hands, hammer loud in morning air. She learned the tractor's stubborn moods and the rhythm of feeding schedules. Her palms blistered and she felt strangely proud of the sting. Because pain that came from building was different than pain that came from abandonment. One hurt, but the other healed at the same time. She started sleeping deeper, like her body trusted her now. At the hospital, she became the nurse people asked for by name. She spoke softly to the scared, firmly to the stubborn, kindly to the lonely. Her co-workers noticed the change. Less smile for show, more strength for real. "Whatever happened to you," her friend Marin said one night, "it sharpened you." Lisa didn't tell the story. She just adjusted her badge and kept moving. She was tired of being defined by what someone else did. She wanted to be defined by what she chose next. Winter arrived early, frost whitening the fields like an erased beginning. Lisa strung warm lights along the porch because the darkness felt too heavy. She baked bread on Sundays, not for tradition, but for the smell of home. Sometimes she cried while kneading dough, quiet tears that didn't stop her hands. Other times she laughed at nothing, startled by her own survival. She learned grief wasn't a straight line. It was weather, and she learned she could outlast storms. The town held its annual holiday market in the square. Lisa went alone, scarf tucked up, cheeks pink from cold wind. She bought a small wreath, then stood there watching families move in warm clusters. For a moment, loneliness hit hard enough to steal her breath. Then she remembered the version of herself who would have waited at home, hoping. Lisa exhaled and kept walking, boots crunching on packed snow. Presence, she decided, was a form of dignity. In January, she met with the bank and refinanced what she could. The paperwork was thick, the numbers cold, but she stayed calm. The banker looked at her and said, "Where's your husband?" Like it mattered. Lisa lifted her gaze and didn't blink. "I'm the one keeping this place alive," she answered, and she signed her name with a steady hand, claiming her own life. When she stepped outside, the sun looked brighter than it had in months. Another call came from Sean in February. This time she answered, not because she missed him, because she respected herself. His voice sounded different, smoother, like the city had ironed him flat. "I've been meaning to come by," he said, as if time were his to control. Lisa leaned against the counter, eyes on the calendar full of her own plans. "Meaning to isn't the same as doing," she replied. Silence swallowed the line, and she didn't rescue him from it. "You're cold," Sean finally said, half accusation, half surprise. Lisa's mouth tightened, but her voice stayed even. "No," she corrected. "I'm clear." She could hear his breathing, like he wanted to argue but didn't know how. "I thought you'd still be you," he murmured, and it stung more than anger. Lisa stared at her reflection in the dark window and answered the truth. "I am me, just not the version that waits." Spring brought mud and new shoots and the smell of wet earth. Lisa planted a small garden beside the porch, hands deep in soil. She worked without music, listening to birds and her own steady breath. The town began to look at her differently, not with pity, but respect. Because she didn't crumble the way stories expected her to. She rebuilt quietly, the way strong women do when no one applauds. And somewhere inside her, hope stopped hurting. One evening, Marin invited her to a bonfire by the river. Lisa almost said no out of habit, then caught herself and said yes instead. She stood with a paper cup of cider, warmth on her face, smoke in her hair. Someone asked about Sean casually, like it was a small-town hobby. Lisa looked at the flames and felt something settle into place. "He made his choice," she said, calm as a closed door. "And I made mine." The next morning, Lisa found an envelope in her mailbox. No return address, only her name written in neat, unfamiliar ink. Inside was a check, more money than she'd ever held at once, and a short note with no poetry, no apology, no explanation, just 5 words that made her stomach drop. For the house. For peace. Lisa stared at it, heart racing, because she knew whose silence that was. She didn't cash it that day. She placed it on the table like evidence and went to work anyway. At the hospital, a new patient arrived with paperwork from out of state. Lisa glanced at the admitting form, half paying attention, until she saw the employer line, a company name she recognized from the note's envelope seal. Her pulse turned loud, and a cold certainty climbed her spine. Sean was closer than he should have been, and the road was about to bring him back. Lisa didn't notice the shaking in her hands at first. It was subtle, like a tremor under the skin of a normal day. The county hospital smelled like antiseptic and burnt coffee. Phones rang, doors clicked, carts rolled past like steady time. But that employer name on the intake form kept flashing in her mind. The same seal, the same quiet pressure in her chest. Sean wasn't a memory anymore. He was a shadow near the door. She told herself it meant nothing. Big companies had branches. Names traveled. Coincidences happened. Still, her body didn't believe coincidences. Her breath grew shallow as she walked the hallway with a chart. The patient's file said, "Transferred. Out of state. Urgent review." Lisa swallowed, forcing her face into calm professionalism. She refused to let a ghost choose her expression. Marin caught her near the nurse's station, eyes narrowing. "You look like you saw a storm coming," she murmured. Lisa tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It's nothing," she lied, because truth felt too sharp to speak. Marin leaned closer, lowering her voice over the noise. "That's what people say right before everything changes." Lisa didn't answer, because she felt that too. The patient arrived around noon, escorted by 2 administrators. He was older, gray at the temples, dressed like money but moving like pain. His arm was in a sling and his jaw was clenched with stubborn pride. He glanced around the small hospital like it offended him with its simplicity. Then his eyes flicked to Lisa's badge, and he paused too long. Not recognition of her, but recognition of the town's name. As if he'd just confirmed something he came to see. "I need to speak with the director," he said sharply. The administrator offered rehearsed reassurance and guided him forward. Lisa watched him pass, her pulse beating in her throat. On the back of his jacket, stitched in clean thread, was the logo. The same logo that had haunted the envelope in her mailbox. Lisa's stomach dropped, cold and certain now. This wasn't coincidence. This was an arrival. The rest of the shift moved in fragments. She checked vitals, refilled meds, smiled at patients who needed warmth. But every hallway felt longer. Every door felt like a question. She caught herself listening for a voice she hadn't heard in years. Not because she missed it, because she feared what it could undo. Lisa reminded herself of her rule: never react first. She would not hand him power through surprise. Near the end of the day, she stepped into the supply room. The air was cool, shelves stacked with gauze and saline, and quiet. She reached for gloves, and her fingers brushed the wrong box. A small thing, ordinary, yet it cracked her control for 1 second. Because suddenly she remembered Sean's hands in this town, fixing fences, holding her face, promising he'd stay. Her throat tightened, and she forced herself to breathe again. When she came out, the hallway was strangely still. Not silent, just hushed, like the building sensed something approaching. 2 administrators stood near the front desk with tense smiles. A security guard shifted his weight, watching the entrance. Marin's eyes met Lisa's from across the corridor, wide and wary. "What's going on?" Lisa mouthed, and Marin shook her head. Then the front doors opened, and cold air rushed in. Sean walked in like a man trying not to be seen, not wearing a suit the way Lisa imagined success would dress him. He wore a dark coat, a simple sweater, and regret in his posture. His hair was shorter, his face leaner, the angles sharper with age. But it was his eyes that hit her like impact. They looked older than the years, heavy with something he couldn't outrun. And for a breathless second, the past stood right there, alive. Lisa didn't move. Her body wanted to step back, but she planted her feet instead. She had learned, the hard way, that storms only take what you loosen. Sean's gaze swept the lobby, then landed on her like he'd been searching. His breath caught, small, visible, human, and his hand flexed at his side. He didn't smile. He didn't perform confidence. He just looked at her like he'd finally understood what leaving meant. The administrators greeted him too brightly, too politely. "Mr. Carter, thank you for coming on such short notice." Lisa almost laughed at the irony of short notice. Sean nodded, professional, controlled, as if he could keep the moment contained. Then his eyes slid back to Lisa, and the control cracked. He opened his mouth like he might say her name, but he didn't, because he didn't know if he was allowed. Lisa turned before her knees could betray her. She walked down the hallway with measured steps, chart held to her chest. She heard footsteps behind her, careful and hesitant, keeping distance, not chasing her, following like someone who knew he'd lost the right to rush. At the end of the corridor, she stopped at a window facing the fields. The sunset spilled gold over land that had seen her survive. And then she turned because she would not hide from history. Sean stood a few feet away, hands visible, shoulders tense. He looked like a man walking into a courtroom with no defense. Lisa studied him the way she studied patience, calm, exact, observant. "You're here," she said, and her voice didn't shake. It wasn't a question. It wasn't a welcome. It was a fact. Sean swallowed hard, nodding once like he deserved no more. "I am," he answered, and the words sounded too small for years. "Why?" Lisa asked, simple and unforgiving. Sean's gaze dropped for a moment, then lifted again with effort. "There's a situation," he said carefully. "Business trying to shield his pain. A land dispute, a donation contract, the hospital board called." Lisa's expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened. "And you thought this town wouldn't include me?" she said quietly. Sean flinched, as if her clarity hurt more than anger. He took a breath, and when he spoke again, it wasn't rehearsed. "I didn't know you worked here," he admitted, voice rough. Lisa held his gaze without softening. "You didn't know a lot of things," she replied. Her words weren't cruel, just true. The way winter is true. Sean's jaw tightened, shame moving through him like a wave. "I should have," he said. And for once it didn't sound like an excuse. Lisa waited, because she knew men like Sean used silence as strategy. But his silence now wasn't strategy. It was surrender. He looked at the hallway floor like he was bracing for impact. "I came back to fix what I can," he said, and his voice broke slightly. Lisa didn't blink, didn't rescue him with sympathy. "Fixing isn't the same as undoing," she said, and the way she said it made him exhale like he'd been punched by truth. Sean nodded slowly, accepting the weight without bargaining. "I know," he whispered, eyes glistening but refusing tears. Lisa felt something twist in her chest. Old love, old pain, old instincts. She pressed it down, not because she was cold, but because she was wise. "You don't get to arrive and rewrite the years," she said firmly. Sean's shoulders dipped and he looked smaller than his success. "I'm not asking to rewrite," he answered. "I'm asking to prove." The hallway lights hummed above them, steady and indifferent. Lisa stared at him, and her heartbeat didn't speed. It steadied, because the power had shifted, and Sean could feel it. Outside the window, the fields glowed, patient and endless. Lisa's voice lowered, controlled, devastating. "Prove it with actions, because words are what you left me with." Sean nodded once, and the silence that followed promised a storm of truths next. The next morning, the town woke under a sky washed clean. Frost clung to fence posts, and the fields looked quiet, almost forgiving. But inside the county hospital, the air felt tight with expectation. A board meeting had been called. Urgent, formal, uncomfortable. Lisa walked in with her badge straight and her shoulders squared. She wasn't here as Sean's past. She was here as her own present. And she refused to let history speak louder than her integrity. Sean sat at the end of the conference table like a visitor with power. He wore calm the way men wear armor when they're afraid to feel. The hospital director welcomed him with careful gratitude and practiced smiles. Paperwork was stacked in neat piles, as if order could soften conflict. Outside the glass window, a pickup rolled by, slow, curious. In a small town, even meetings have an audience you can't see. Lisa took her seat and kept her eyes on the truth, not the man. "We appreciate the donation," the director began, voice cautious. "The new wing would change everything for this community." Sean nodded once, hands folded, expression controlled. "It's not charity," he said. "It's responsibility." Lisa's pen paused, because responsibility was not a word she'd expect from him. Then he slid a document forward, and the room leaned in. "However," he added softly, "there are terms we need to discuss." The terms weren't cruel, but they weren't innocent either. Access rights to a road that cut through farmland near the hospital. A partnership clause that placed his company's name on the wing. A timeline that moved fast, too fast for a town that needed time. Lisa watched the board members trade uneasy looks. She also watched Sean avoid looking at her, like he already knew. That the truth would not fit neatly into signatures. Lisa cleared her throat and the sound made the room turn. "Before we discuss names on walls," she said, voice steady, "I have questions." Sean's gaze lifted immediately, sharp but not defensive. She tapped the document with her pen, not aggressive, precise. "Why this hospital?" she asked. "Why now?" The director blinked, surprised by the directness. But Sean didn't flinch, and that alone felt like a change. "Because rural hospitals are closing," Sean answered. "Because this one serves people no one else drives this far for." He spoke like someone who had studied the facts, not just the optics. Lisa's face stayed calm, but her heart didn't fully believe him yet. "Then keep it clean," she said, holding his gaze. "No hidden pressure, no strings disguised as generosity." Sean's jaw tightened, and he nodded like he accepted the standard. The director tried to soften the tension with polite laughter. Lisa didn't join it, and neither did Sean. A board member asked about the road clause, voice hesitant. Sean explained logistics, legalities, timelines. He sounded prepared, too prepared for someone just helping. Lisa listened, then asked again, quieter this time, "Why did you send money to my house?" The room froze like a song abruptly cut off. The director looked from Lisa to Sean, confused. Marin's eyes widened in the corner as if to say, "Lisa, not here." But Lisa had learned the cost of holding truths inside. Sean's face went still, the first real crack in his control. His fingers flexed on the table and his voice lowered. "Because I didn't know how to help without showing up," he admitted. Lisa swallowed, keeping her tone even. "You thought money could cover silence?" she asked. Sean's eyes flickered with shame and he didn't deny it. "I thought it could ease something," he said. Lisa leaned back slightly, breathing through the heat in her chest. "It eased nothing," she replied, and the words didn't shake. "It just proved you still didn't understand what you took." Sean's gaze dropped for a moment, then lifted again with effort. "I didn't send it to buy forgiveness," he said, voice rough. Lisa stared at him like she was reading a chart she already knew. "Intent doesn't erase impact," she answered. He nodded slowly, accepting the correction without fighting it. "I know," he said again, quieter than before, and the room felt the weight of those two words like a cold draft. The director cleared his throat, trying to return to business, but the truth had already walked into the center of the table. Lisa slid the envelope seal from her folder and placed it down. A small, simple thing, yet it felt like evidence in a trial. "This is why I won't sign anything rushed," she said, "because this town has seen men come back with polished intentions. And I won't let this hospital become someone's redemption story." Sean's head lifted sharply at that. His voice stayed calm, but the emotion underneath was raw. Then don't, he said. Make it bigger than me. Lisa blinked, surprised by the lack of ego in his tone. He leaned forward slightly, palms open. No performance. If you think these terms are wrong, he continued, change them. I'm here to build, not to control. Lisa held his gaze, measuring the man behind the words. For years she'd begged the past to make sense. Now she wanted the present to prove it had grown a spine. Take the name off the wing, she said, clear and firm. A board member gasped softly, like it was unthinkable. Sean's eyes narrowed, then softened. Not with anger, with thought. Okay, he said, and the single word landed like thunder. The room shifted, unsure what to do with humility. Lisa didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She simply continued, because trust required more than one good answer. Remove the road clause, she added, or negotiate it publicly. Sean nodded again, then looked at the director. Public hearing, he agreed. No shortcuts. The director exhaled, as if the air finally returned. After the meeting, the board members filed out in murmurs. Lisa gathered her papers slowly, letting her hands stay steady. Sean waited until the room was nearly empty. Marin lingered by the door, watching like a guard. Sean spoke softly, careful not to corner Lisa with closeness. I deserve that, he said, voice low, eyes honest. Lisa didn't disagree, and her silence was not cruel, just accurate. You didn't come back for me, Lisa said at last, not accusing, naming the truth that hurt less than denial. Sean's breath caught, and his eyes glistened in quiet defeat. I didn't come back only for you, he admitted. But you're the reason I can't lie to myself anymore. Lisa's throat tightened, but she didn't let it soften her boundary. Then prove change where it counts, she replied, when no one is watching. Sean nodded once, like he was accepting a mission, not chasing a prize. Tell me what that looks like, he asked, voice steady, unprotected. Lisa looked out the window at the fields, pale under winter light. It looks like showing up on the hard days, she said. It looks like listening without defending yourself. It looks like respecting my life even if I never give you mine again. Sean swallowed and answered with the quietest promise. I will. That night, Lisa returned home and set the check on the table. She stared at it as the porch lights glowed warm against the cold. A storm had left. Another was forming. One made of choices and consequences. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Generators acting up at the hospital. I'm on my way. Don't go alone. Lisa's pulse kicked, not from hope, from shock at the word alone. And for the first time in years, Sean's return didn't sound like a speech. It sounded like action. The hospital generator failed just after midnight. Not completely, just enough to make lights flicker and alarms chirp. A nervous hush fell over the corridors, like the building held its breath. Lisa pulled on her coat without thinking, boots on, hair still damp from a quick shower. Her first instinct was always the same: go, fix, carry. She grabbed her keys, then paused, because the text was still glowing on her phone. Don't go alone. The drive into town was dark, the road slick with thin ice. Her headlights caught drifting mist and the occasional deer near the fields. Lisa's hand stayed steady on the wheel, but her chest felt tight. Not fear of the roads, fear of what it meant that Sean was coming too. She told herself it was practical. He had resources, influence, people. But the truth was simpler and more dangerous. He was choosing to show up when it was inconvenient. When she arrived, Sean was already there. His car sat near the service entrance, engine off, hazard lights blinking. He stood under a weak lamp, coat collar up, phone pressed to his ear. The cold had reddened his cheeks, but he didn't look bothered by discomfort. He looked focused, present, like a man who finally understood urgency. Lisa parked, stepped out, and the air hit her lungs like glass. Sean ended the call and turned toward her, eyes scanning her face first. You made it, he said, voice quiet, not romantic, relieved. Lisa tightened her scarf, not giving him more emotion than he'd earned. This is my job, she replied, practical as a shield. Sean nodded like he respected the shield. I know, he said. That's why I'm here. He gestured toward the maintenance door. I brought a tech from the city. Lisa blinked, surprised despite herself. Inside, the hospital felt different at night. Less noise, more vulnerability. A few nurses moved quickly, whispering updates, checking monitors. An elderly patient coughed down the hall and a baby cried somewhere distant. Lisa's body shifted into instinctive competence, chart in hand, eyes alert. Sean stayed beside her but slightly behind, careful not to take space. He nodded at staff, kept his voice low, asked short questions, not performing leadership, offering support where it counted. In the basement near the generator, the air smelled like oil and metal. A technician crouched, tools spread out, muttering under his breath. Sean held a flashlight steady without being asked. Lisa watched him from the edge of the doorway, heart oddly unsettled. This wasn't the Sean who used charm to escape consequences. This man looked like he'd learned to be useful in silence. It should have comforted her, but it scared her too. "We can stabilize it," the tech said, wiping sweat from his brow. "But the parts are old. This unit needs replacement within months." Lisa's stomach tightened. She already knew the hospital couldn't afford it. Sean didn't hesitate. "Send me the estimate," he said. The tech glanced at him like he wasn't sure he'd heard right. Sean's voice stayed calm. "Not tomorrow. Tonight." Lisa's eyes narrowed. "No blank checks," she warned, and Sean turned to her immediately. "Not a blank check," Sean agreed without offense. "A solution, public, transparent, whatever rules you put around it." Lisa held his gaze, searching for the old defensiveness. But he didn't argue. He didn't twist her caution into insult. He simply nodded as if boundaries were normal, not an attack. The tech went back to work, and Sean lowered his voice. "I'm not trying to buy my way back into your life." Lisa's jaw tightened. "Then why are you here?" Sean inhaled slowly, breath visible in the cold basement air. "Because I remember you driving alone at night," he admitted. "Because I remember storms like this, and how I left you to face them." His voice cracked slightly, not from drama, from truth scraping his throat. Lisa's fingers curled around her clipboard. "Remembering isn't repairing," she said. Sean nodded. "That's why I'm doing, not talking." The generator roared back stronger a few minutes later. Lights steadied. The alarms stopped. Relief moved through the hospital like warmth spreading in a room. Nurses laughed softly, the kind of laugh that comes after tension breaks. Lisa exhaled, shoulders releasing tension she didn't realize she held. Sean watched her, and his eyes softened. Not possessive, not hungry, just respectful, like he was witnessing her strength and finally honoring it. When they stepped outside, snow had started falling lightly. Not heavy, just slow, bright flakes caught in the porch light. The world looked quieter under it, like it was trying to reset. Lisa zipped her coat higher, staring at the sky. Sean stood beside her but didn't touch her, even though the moment begged for closeness. "That used to be my favorite kind of snow," she said before she could stop herself. Sean turned, surprised by the small opening. "Mine too," he answered, voice low. A pause stretched between them, filled with things neither dared to name. Lisa's breath came out slow, controlled. "I'm not the same," she reminded him, like a warning sign. Sean's gaze held steady. "I know," he said. "That's what scares me." Lisa blinked, not expecting honesty that didn't demand sympathy. Sean continued quietly. "Because the old me counted on you staying." Lisa felt the sting behind her eyes and refused to let it rise. "Don't say it like I'm the reason you left," she said, calm but firm. Sean flinched, then shook his head immediately. "No," he said. "I'm saying you were loyal in a way I didn't deserve." His voice dropped. "And I treated it like a guarantee." Lisa's throat tightened. The snow fell between them like a curtain. For a moment, the past hovered close enough to touch. A truck rolled by slowly, headlights sweeping over them. Lisa noticed the way it slowed, the way eyes inside probably watched. Small towns notice everything, especially women standing near the man who hurt them. Lisa straightened instinctively, stepping half an inch away. Sean noticed and didn't react with wounded pride. He simply angled his body slightly, giving her space, protecting her reputation without claiming her. It was subtle, but Lisa felt it like a hand that didn't grab. "People will talk," Lisa said, more statement than fear. Sean looked toward the road, then back at her. "Let them," he replied. "They talked when I left too." He swallowed and his voice softened. "This time I'll stay long enough to face them." Lisa's chest tightened at the word stay. She had built her life on not believing in that word anymore. She lifted her chin. "Staying isn't a sentence," she said. "It's a pattern." Sean nodded once as if he'd expected that answer. "I'm willing to earn the pattern," he said quietly. Lisa's eyes studied him, measuring what couldn't be faked. Behind his calm, she could see exhaustion, the cost of becoming someone better. That frightened her more than his arrogance ever did, because arrogance was easy to hate. Change required a different kind of courage from her. At her car, Lisa paused with her hand on the door handle. Sean stood a few feet away, careful, patient. He didn't ask to talk more. He didn't ask to come home with her. He didn't try to turn a working night into romance. He simply said, "Text me when you get home." Lisa blinked, surprised by the ordinary tenderness of it. Then she nodded once, almost unwillingly, and got in. The drive back felt different. Not lighter, just less lonely, and that disturbed her. At the farmhouse, she turned on the porch light and stood for a moment before going inside. Her phone buzzed with another message from Sean. No pressure, no expectations. Just, "I'm glad you're safe." Lisa stared at the screen, snow melting on her coat. And in the quiet, she realized the most dangerous thing wasn't his return. It was the way her heart recognized action and wanted to believe again. 2 days later, the storm returned with teeth. Not the soft snow from the hospital night, but real winter. Wind and ice and raw force. The radio warned of downed lines, slick roads, and power outages across the county. Lisa listened while tying her boots, gaze steady, heart practical. Storms didn't scare her the way they used to. She had survived worse than weather. She had survived absence. Still, the air felt charged, like something more than snow was coming. The hospital called at dawn. A multi-car accident on the county highway. Ambulances inbound. Lisa was already moving before the dispatcher finished the sentence. She threw on scrubs beneath her coat, hair pinned back tight. The farmhouse creaked as the wind hit it, but she didn't look back. She grabbed her keys, then hesitated, remembering Sean's message. "Text me when you get home." It annoyed her, the tenderness of it, because it made her want something she didn't trust. She drove slow, white-knuckled, headlights carving through snow like tunnels. The road near the river was nearly invisible under drifting ice. Lisa kept her breathing steady, eyes fixed forward. Halfway to town, her tires slipped, just a small skid, but enough to spike fear through her chest. She corrected, heart pounding hard against her ribs. And then behind her she saw headlights appear, far at first, then closer. A car following at a safe distance, steady, patient, not passing. At a red light near the empty diner, the car pulled up beside her. Sean rolled his window down, snow clinging to his hair and coat. Lisa's breath caught, not from romance, from disbelief. "What are you doing?" she asked, voice sharp to cover the tremble underneath. Sean's eyes were calm, focused, stubborn in the best way. "Following you," he answered simply. "The roads are bad." Lisa's jaw tightened. "I didn't ask you to." Sean nodded once, not offended, just steady. "I know," he said. "I'm still doing it." The light turned green. He didn't speed ahead. He stayed behind her again. Lisa's hands tightened on the wheel, anger mixing with something softer. Protection used to feel like a trap in Sean's hands. Now it felt like presence, quiet, unclaimed, without demands. That difference unsettled her more than the storm. The hospital was chaos when she arrived. Paramedics rushed gurneys in, faces tight, voices clipped. Blood, snow, and adrenaline tracked into the corridors. Lisa snapped into action, triaging, giving orders, comforting families. She didn't have time to think about Sean, not until she saw him at the entrance. He wasn't in the way. He was helping, moving boxes, guiding an older woman to a chair. And for a split second, Lisa almost forgot how to breathe. Marin spotted him too and hurried to Lisa, eyes wide. He just showed up, she whispered, half stunned, half impressed. Lisa's gaze followed Sean as he spoke to a nurse, then nodded, then moved again. Who gave him permission? Maren asked. Lisa swallowed, voice low. No one. Maren's expression softened. That's different. Lisa didn't answer because different was the most dangerous word in the world. In the ER, a teenage boy crashed, pulse dropping fast. Lisa pressed gloved hands to his chest, shouting instructions over alarms. A doctor called for supplies and someone fumbled, panic rising. Sean appeared at the doorway, eyes scanning, reading the room. He didn't demand attention. He didn't ask questions he didn't need answered. He simply grabbed what was asked for and ran it in, then stepped out again. Lisa's mind registered one clear fact. He was not freezing under pressure. Hours later, when the worst stabilized, Lisa finally stepped into the break room. Her hands trembled from fatigue, adrenaline draining like water from a cracked glass. She poured coffee and stared at it, not really seeing. The door opened quietly, and Sean walked in holding 2 bottles of water. He set one beside her without a word, then leaned against the counter at a respectful distance. Lisa didn't look up immediately. You don't belong here, she said flatly. Sean's voice was calm. I belong where I can help. Lisa turned then, eyes tired and sharp. You can't help by hovering, she said, and the frustration in her voice was real. Sean nodded slowly, absorbing it, not arguing. I'm not hovering, he replied. I'm staying out of your way. Lisa scoffed softly. You always knew how to stay out of the hard parts. The words slipped out before she could filter them. Sean's face tightened, pain flashing in his eyes like a storm behind glass. You're right, he said quietly, and Lisa's breath caught. No defense, no excuse, no anger. He took a slow breath, steadying himself like a man choosing courage. I left when it got heavy, he continued. I told myself I was building a future. He swallowed. But I was running from the version of me that didn't feel enough. Lisa's throat tightened, but her face stayed composed. That wasn't my burden to carry, she said, voice low. Sean nodded, eyes glistening, jaw clenched with restraint. I know, he whispered. And I made it yours anyway. The room felt smaller, filled with years that had nowhere else to go. Lisa stared at him, the old instinct to comfort rising, and she crushed it. I built my life without you, she said, steady, not cruel. Sean's gaze didn't waver. I see that, he replied, and it's beautiful. Lisa blinked, startled by the reverence in his tone. Outside, the wind howled against the building. Lights flickered again, and the hospital groaned like it was bracing for impact. A nurse rushed in with a worried face. Power's unstable, generators straining. Lisa's body moved instantly. I'll check it, she said. Sean was already pushing off the counter. I'm coming, he said. Lisa turned, eyes hard. No. Sean paused, then nodded. Then I'll wait right there, he said, pointing to the corridor. But you won't be alone. Down in the basement, the generator screamed, struggling under load. Lisa knelt beside it, flashlight in hand, breath visible in the cold. Her fingers were numb, but she worked, adjusting settings, checking connections. She heard footsteps, then stopped, expecting Sean to have disobeyed. But it wasn't him. It was the technician again, rushing in. Sean's voice echoed from the top of the stairs. She's down there. Be careful. Lisa's chest tightened because he kept his promise, present but not intrusive. The generator stabilized after tense minutes, the noise smoothing. Lisa stood, shoulders aching, hands trembling from cold. When she climbed the stairs, Sean was there exactly where he said he'd be. Not leaning too close, not forcing conversation. Just waiting. He held out a folded blanket without a word. Lisa hesitated, then took it, wrapping it around her shoulders. The simple gesture hit her harder than any apology ever could. Why are you doing this? Lisa asked, voice rougher than she intended. Sean's eyes held hers, calm, honest, stripped of performance. Because I remember the night I left, he said quietly. I remember you standing in that doorway like you were trying not to break. His voice cracked. "And I hate that I was the reason you had to become steel." Lisa's throat tightened, anger and grief twisting together. Sean swallowed hard. "I can't undo it," he added. "But I can stop being the kind of man who runs." Lisa looked away, blinking fast, refusing tears. "I don't know if I can forgive you," she admitted. Soft truth, not threat. Sean nodded, accepting it like a consequence, not a negotiation. "Then don't," he said. "Not yet." He stepped back half a step, giving her space to breathe. "I'm not here to rush your heart," he continued. "I'm here to earn safety." Lisa's chest rose and fell, and she felt the terrifying pull of wanting to believe. That night, after the shift finally quieted, Sean walked her to her car. Snow swirled under the streetlights like restless ghosts. Lisa's hands shook as she unlocked the door, exhaustion settling deep. Sean didn't ask to come home. He didn't ask for a conversation that lasted past her limits. He simply said, "I'll follow you again," like it was the most normal thing in the world. Lisa met his gaze, and for the first time her voice softened, just slightly. "Fine," she said, "but don't mistake permission for trust." The storm passed, but it left evidence everywhere. Branches down across fences, a few cracked windows in town, and icy ruts in the roads. Lisa spent the next morning on her porch with a thermos of coffee and a toolbox. She worked in silence, tightening loose boards, resecuring a railing Sean once promised to fix. Her hands didn't shake anymore. She'd become steady through necessity. Still, she felt something new under her ribs. Attention. The strange sensation of being seen without being chased. Sean didn't show up at her house. Not that day, not the next, not even when the sun finally melted the ice. Lisa noticed, and it both relieved her and irritated her. Because restraint was harder to understand than persistence. Old Sean would have tried to force a conversation, a moment, a shortcut. This Sean seemed willing to wait outside her boundaries like they were sacred. It made her wonder who he had become when no one was watching. At the hospital, his presence became practical, not romantic. A donated shipment arrived. Blankets, pediatric supplies, updated monitors. Everything documented. Everything signed through legal channels. No grand speech, no photo op, no "my name on the wall." Lisa checked the paperwork twice, expecting a hidden clause. But the terms were clean, transparent, almost respectful. Maren whistled softly. "Either he grew a conscience," she said, "or he's trying real hard." Lisa didn't answer because she wasn't sure which possibility scared her more. Trying hard could be performance. But conscience meant change, and change demanded response. Lisa's phone buzzed near noon with a message from an unknown number again. Shipment arrived. Everything logged. Director has copies. No pressure to respond. Lisa stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Then she typed one sentence and hit send. "Thank you for doing it correctly." The response came instantly, like he'd been waiting without expecting. "That's the only way I'm doing it now." Lisa's chest tightened with something she refused to name. She slid her phone into her pocket and went back to work. But her mind kept circling one thought like a quiet bird over water. He wasn't asking for access. He was offering consistency. A week later, the town council held a public hearing about the road clause. The community center filled with farmers, nurses, church ladies, and men in work jackets. Lisa arrived early, sitting near the front with her notes and her calm. Sean walked in alone, no entourage, no lawyers beside him. He wore the same dark coat as the night in the hospital, simple and unarmed. Heads turned, whispers rose like wind in dry grass. Lisa watched him take a seat 2 rows behind her, not trying to sit close. The meeting started with tension and local pride. People didn't like outsiders telling them what was best for development, even if the outsider came from their own town's past. A farmer stood up and spoke sharply about land rights and city men with fancy plans. Lisa felt the room heat with suspicion. Then the council chair called Sean to speak, and the room quieted. Sean rose slowly, hands visible, gaze steady, like a man ready to be judged. "I'm not here to take anything," Sean began, voice calm. "I'm here to give the hospital what it needs, on your terms, not mine." Murmurs spread, skeptical, and surprised. He spoke about the generator replacement, the impact on emergency care, the winter accident victims. He talked about mothers, elderly patients, kids with asthma who couldn't drive an hour away. Then he said something that made Lisa's breath catch. "I left this town once when it got hard," he admitted, "and I won't disrespect it again by acting like I know better than you." The room shifted. Not forgiveness, never that quickly, but attention, the kind you give truth. One councilman asked about profit, blunt and suspicious. Sean didn't flinch. "My company won't profit from this," he said. "Not directly, and not in any way that costs you control." He offered to remove the clause entirely, to reroute the plan, to adjust timelines. He spoke like someone who understood power and chose not to abuse it. Lisa watched him and felt an unexpected ache behind her ribs, because she remembered the man who couldn't admit wrong without anger. After the hearing, people lingered outside under the pale winter sun. A few approached Sean, not friendly but willing to talk. He stayed, answering questions, taking criticism without snapping. Lisa stood near her car, observing from a distance. Sean glanced at her once, just once, then looked away like he didn't want to pull her into it. Maren nudged Lisa's shoulder gently. "He's not running," she whispered. Lisa swallowed. "Not yet," she replied. But something inside her quietly corrected. Not this time. That evening, Lisa found someone had cleared fallen branches from her long gravel drive. Not a note, not a phone call. No, "Look what I did." Just clean tire tracks and stacked wood near the edge of the property. Her chest tightened with anger first, because help can feel like trespass. Then it softened into something else when she noticed the details. The stacks were neat, careful, exactly where she would have placed them. No damage to the fence, no footprints near her porch. Whoever did it had respected her space while still doing the work. Her phone buzzed 20 minutes later. "Road was bad. I cleared it so the ambulance can reach you if you ever need one. No need to reply." Lisa stared at the message, breath caught between irritation and gratitude. She typed, deleted, typed again. Finally, she sent, "Don't come onto my property without asking." The reply came a minute later. "You're right, I'm sorry. I thought safety mattered more than permission. I won't do it again." Lisa's throat tightened because he didn't argue. He accepted correction like an adult. 2 days later, she agreed to meet him, publicly. Not at her house, not in the dark, not in a place that felt intimate. They met at the diner just off Main Street where coffee was strong and everyone watched. Lisa chose the booth near the window. Sean arrived on time. Not early, not late, exactly when he said. He didn't slide in beside her. He sat across, leaving space like a boundary line. Lisa appreciated it more than she wanted to admit. "This isn't forgiveness," Lisa said immediately, voice calm and firm. Sean nodded once. "I know. It's not a second chance," she continued, eyes steady. Sean's gaze didn't waver. "I know." Lisa's fingers wrapped around her mug for warmth. "You don't get to ask for my heart like it's still yours," she said. Sean swallowed hard, then spoke quietly. "I'm not asking for your heart," he said. "I'm asking for the chance to become safe near it." The words landed heavy, honest, and unwantedly beautiful. Lisa looked away, blinking fast, refusing softness. "Safe means consistency," she said, regaining control. "It means truth. It means showing up on ordinary days, not just dramatic ones." Sean nodded slowly, as if he'd memorized the rule. "I can do that," he replied. Lisa studied him. "And when you get offered another promotion?" she asked. "When the road calls you away again?" Sean's face tightened, the question striking deep. He didn't answer quickly, and Lisa respected the pause. Then he said, "I already got offered one." Lisa's stomach dropped, and she hated herself for reacting. Sean lifted a hand slightly, not to stop her, just to steady the moment. "It's bigger. More money. A higher title," he admitted. Lisa's jaw hardened. "And you came back anyway," she said, voice guarded. Sean nodded. "Because I realized success without roots is just running in nicer shoes." Lisa's eyes sharpened, protective and skeptical. "Words," she warned. Sean leaned forward slightly, voice low, steady. Then here are actions, he said. He slid a folder across the table, documents, signatures, dates, a public commitment, funding for the generator replacement, with oversight by a community board, a scholarship program for local nursing students, a guarantee that the hospital's new wing would remain community-owned. Lisa's breath caught, not because it was romantic, but because it was real. Lisa closed the folder gently, hands steady, heart loud. "Do you understand what this costs you?" she asked. Sean nodded once, eyes clear. "Yes." "And you're doing it anyway?" she pressed, needing the truth fully spoken. Sean's voice lowered to something almost tender. "Yes." Lisa stared at him, and for the first time, the door inside her wasn't locked. It was simply held closed by a hand that was getting tired. She stood, leaving money on the table for her coffee, and said the only honest thing, "I'm not ready to trust you, but I'm willing to watch." The offer arrived on a Monday, sealed in thick paper. A higher title, a bigger office, a salary that sounded unreal. Sean held it in his hands like a doorway back to the old habits. The kind that said leave now, explain later, win first, feel later. Outside his rental house, snow fell in quiet, patient flakes. Inside, his chest felt tight with a choice that finally had teeth. Because this time leaving wouldn't be ambition, it would be betrayal. By Wednesday, the town had already sensed something shifting. People always sensed things in places where everyone shared one main road. A rumor moved through the diner, the church steps, the hospital corridors. "Sean's going back to the city," someone said like it was inevitable. Lisa heard it near the nurse's station and felt her stomach drop. Not because she needed him, because she hated how pain still recognized patterns. Her face stayed calm, but her heart went cold with memory. That afternoon, Lisa found a note at the hospital front desk. Not flowers, not drama, just a single line on plain paper. "Community meeting, Friday, 6 p.m. Please be there." No apology attached, no demand for conversation. Her first instinct was to ignore it, to protect her peace. But the hospital was her people, her purpose, her ground. So she nodded once to herself and decided she would show up. Friday came with a pale sunset, an air sharp enough to sting. The community center filled early, chairs scraping, voices rising in layers. A New Year for the Hospital fundraiser banner hung over the stage. Strings of warm lights flickered, softening the room's rough edges. Lisa sat near the front with Maren, hands folded, posture steady. She wasn't there for Sean's redemption. She was there for the town's future. Still, she couldn't stop her pulse from listening for his footsteps. When Sean entered, the room shifted like a tide. He wore a suit, but it didn't look like armor anymore. It looked like responsibility. Clean lines, tired eyes, shoulders held steady. He greeted a few people with quiet respect, taking criticism without flinching. Lisa watched him from her seat, refusing to react first. He didn't search for her like a man entitled to her attention. He simply took his place near the stage and waited to be judged. The council chair spoke first, then the hospital director. They thanked donors, outlined needs, explained timelines and oversight. Sean stood beside them with hands visible, gaze calm, breathing slow. When the director mentioned the generator replacement, Sean nodded once. Lisa noticed the detail. He nodded like a partner, not an owner. Then the microphone turned to him, and the room held its breath. Sean stepped forward like a man choosing the hard truth on purpose. "I was offered a promotion," he said, and murmurs sparked instantly. Lisa's spine stiffened, old pain waking like an alarm. Sean raised a hand slightly, not dramatic, steadying the room. "It's in the city," he continued, voice clear, "and it's everything I chased before." He paused, swallowing, eyes shining but controlled, and I turned it down. The room went still, like even the lights stopped blinking. "I used to believe leaving made me strong," Sean said quietly. "I used to believe success was proof I didn't need anyone." His gaze moved across faces, landing briefly on Lisa without grabbing her. "But the truth is, I left because I was afraid of being ordinary." He exhaled, voice rougher now. "And I left a woman carrying the weight of my fear." Lisa's chest tightened. Because he finally named her pain without demanding forgiveness. Sean reached into a folder and held up a signed document. "A local office will open here," he announced. "Owned by my company, run here. Jobs will stay here. Training will happen here. Investment will stay here." He turned slightly toward the director. "The generator gets replaced within 60 days, under community oversight." Then he faced the room again, voice steady. "And the new wing will not carry my name. Because this isn't about my image." Some people clapped. Others stared like they didn't trust miracles. A man in a work jacket called out, "And what do you get out of it?" Sean didn't flinch, didn't smile, didn't perform humility. "I get to live with myself," he answered simply. He let the silence sit, then added, "And I get to stop running." The man didn't look satisfied, but he didn't argue either, because the answer sounded like something that cost more than money. Lisa's throat tightened and she couldn't breathe in that crowded room. Not because she was moved, because she was terrified. Terrified that this was real, and real things required decisions. She stood quietly and slipped out the side door into the cold. Snow hit her cheeks like tiny needles, shocking her back to the present. She stared into the dark parking lot and felt two truths collide. She had survived without him, and she still hadn't healed what he broke. The door opened behind her, soft on its hinges. Sean stepped out slowly, stopping several feet away like he remembered her boundaries. He didn't touch her. He didn't trap her with closeness. "I won't follow if you don't want me here," he said, voice low. Lisa kept her eyes on the snow-covered pavement. "I don't know what I want," she admitted, and the honesty tasted raw. Sean nodded like he respected uncertainty more than comfort. "I'm not your project," Lisa said, turning at last, eyes sharp. "I'm not the woman you left on a porch in a storm." Sean's jaw tightened, pain flickering, but he didn't defend himself. "I know," he whispered, "and I hate that I made you become her." Lisa's voice lowered, steady as a warning sign. "If you're doing this to ease your guilt, stop now." Sean's gaze held hers unwavering. "I'm doing it because guilt isn't enough anymore." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a second paper. Folded once, edges worn like he'd carried it too long. "This is my formal request to relocate permanently," he said. "And this," he held up another page, "is a letter declining the promotion." Lisa stared, breath caught, because paper was the language of consequences. "You didn't have to show me that," she said, guarded. "I needed you to know," Sean replied, "that this isn't a mood. It's a decision." Lisa's eyes burned, and she forced herself not to cry. "You can decide to stay," she said softly, "and still leave when it gets hard." Sean's throat worked and his voice cracked in a way that wasn't performance. "You're right," he admitted. "I can." He stepped back half a step, giving her space to keep breathing. "That's why I'm not asking you to trust me tonight," he said. "I'm asking you to watch me long enough to prove I won't disappear." The wind rose, tugging at her hair, cold and relentless. Lisa hugged her arms around herself, not weak, bracing. Sean looked at her like he was finally seeing the cost behind her strength. "I don't want a shortcut," he said quietly. "No grand gesture that forces you to forgive faster than your heart can handle." He swallowed. "Let me do this the right way. Slow, honest, consistent." Lisa's chest ached because slow was exactly what she deserved and what she feared. She stared at him for a long moment, listening to her own heartbeat. Then she spoke, and her voice was steady, grown, unromantic in the best way. "I can't promise you love," she said. "Not yet." Sean nodded, accepting it like a consequence, not a punishment. "But," Lisa added, eyes shining now, "I can promise you one thing. I won't punish you for changing if you keep changing." Sean exhaled like a man who'd been holding his breath for years. In the distance, fireworks cracked softly over the town square. Early New Year celebrations. Light bloomed in the sky, red and gold reflecting on the snow. Lisa looked up, then back at Sean, and something inside her unclenched. Not the past, never the past, but the future, finally breathing again. Sean lifted his hand slowly, not touching her, just offering. Lisa hesitated. then placed her fingers in his for one brief, trembling second. And in that moment, she didn't take him back. She chose a new beginning. The town didn't forgive Sean overnight. Neither did Lisa. Because real healing doesn't happen with a speech. It happens with mornings, with consistency, with the quiet proof that someone won't vanish when life gets heavy. So Sean stayed. He showed up when no one was clapping. He sat through long community meetings where people questioned his motives. He funded the generator replacement under oversight without arguing once. He visited the hospital wing without cameras, bringing supplies, listening to nurses, learning names. And every time Lisa kept her distance, he respected it. Because love that redeems doesn't push, it protects. Weeks turned into months, and the seasons shifted the way they always had. Slow, honest, inevitable. Spring thawed the last bitterness from the roads. The fields greened again, soft and stubborn like life insisting on return. Lisa watched Sean build a routine in town, not like a man seeking approval, but like a man building roots. And she realized something terrifying. The safety she'd prayed for was no longer imaginary. It was standing in front of her, day after day, choosing her peace over his pride. One evening, after a long shift, Lisa walked out of the hospital and found him by her car. Not too close, not blocking her path, just waiting under the streetlight, hands in his pockets, eyes tired but calm. "I got the final inspection date," he said softly. "Generators cleared. The wing starts next month." Lisa nodded, swallowing the emotion rising like heat. "You did what you said you'd do," she replied, and her voice wasn't soft, just honest. Sean breathed in slowly, like he was stepping onto fragile ground. "I don't want to keep living in the space between almost and maybe," he whispered. Lisa's heart tightened, but she didn't step back. "I'm not asking you to forget," he continued, "and I'm not asking you to pretend you didn't survive without me." His eyes glistened. "I'm asking for one thing, permission to be here, fully, for real, in your life, the way I should have been from the start." Lisa stared at him for a long moment, hearing the echo of that porch in the storm, hearing the way abandonment had taught her to lock doors from the inside. Then she looked at the hospital behind her, the place that had watched her grow stronger. She looked at the town around her, the place that had held her through pain. And finally, she looked at Sean, at the man who had returned not to claim her, but to earn her trust. "You don't get me because you came back," Lisa said quietly. "You get me if you keep staying." Sean nodded once, tears threatening but not falling. "I will," he promised. Lisa stepped closer, not rushed, chosen. She lifted her hand and touched his cheek, feeling the cold of the night and the warmth under his skin. Sean closed his eyes for a second, like he'd been waiting years to be allowed this gently. And when Lisa rose on her toes and kissed him, it wasn't desperate. It wasn't a reward. It was a new beginning, sealed not by words, but by the quiet miracle of consistency. When she pulled back, her forehead rested against his. Outside, the town lights glowed like small, steady stars. Inside her chest, something finally softened, not into weakness, but into hope. Because she hadn't waited for love to return. She had built a life, and now she was letting love join it, only because it had learned to stay. If this story made you believe that real love isn't the one that comes back, it's the one that changes and stays, then subscribe to Redeemed Hearts right now. And comment, "He stayed," if you believe second chances only matter when they come with real transformation.